I tried to get the dog to want to be in here for the video, or at least for part of it, which he may still come in. But this movie has a dog in it. This video is going to be me talking about the newest Disney animated movie that has come out, and that is Strange World. Yes, I know it came out back around, Thanksgiving of 2022, and I'm just now recording it just after the beginning of the year of 2023. I hadn't seen it until very recently because around Thanksgiving there was a lot of other stuff that I had to do in regards to lots of family traveling to go and see, and work, and other things that were just not conducive to trying to go and see the movie with my dad in theaters, unfortunately. But I have now seen it. I've seen it twice. Both times with my dad because we just watched it on Disney Plus. And as tends to happen when it comes to Disney movies, that tend to be them trying to take a crack at, science fiction type stuff, I enjoyed it. I definitely put this in the same vein as Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and to a degree Meet the Robinsons. I'm going to have another video coming out where I talk about like a lot of the different similarities and kind of just like why I don't think those unfortunately have done as good as they could have in regards to Disney stuff. I also have another one that's comparing a certain character in Strange World to a certain character in an anime. Spoilers, it's a character in One Piece. Good luck trying to figure out which one it is. But I'll get to that one. But this video is my review slash discussion of Strange World. So the beginning of Strange World, first off, we get like this great, like 1920s, 30s, 40s, like, this is Avalonia and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, the high pitched, announcer voice and everything like that that you associate with like newsreels and stuff like that from like the 30s and 40s and stuff. And it's just funny. And we're told about this place called Avalonia, which is seems to be like a little, I don't know if it's supposed to be a country or if it's just supposed to be like a small group of like cities or whatever that are kind of trapped within this mountain range. And for years, people have tried to get over the mountain ranges. Nobody has been able to. They've had, people that have gone and attempted it, and either they came back failures or they died. And then we are introduced to this character who is called Jaeger Clade, whose family has their own theme song that is the Clades. Jaeger Clade is an adventurer, and he has his son, Searcher, who has been with him since Searcher was a baby. We do know that Searcher has a mother. We see her at the end of the movie. Her name is Penelope. She's very pretty, and unlike a lot of Disney protagonists, both of Searcher's parents are alive. So Jaeger is alive, and Penelope is alive. So he's not like an orphan or anything like that, as tends to happen when it comes to Disney, protagonist at times. Either the parents are both dead, one of them is dead, or they're just not there. In the case of Rapunzel, she was kidnapped, so there's a bit of a difference there. But moving on, there are these brave adventurers and everything who have explored the wilderness of the area that they live in. It's Jaeger's dream to try to climb, try to get past the mountains and everything and see what is beyond them and everything. That is his dream, his goal in life and everything. And he's like been dragging Searcher on all of these different adventures and everything that he's, that they've been on since Searcher was a kid. Jaeger was, probably exploring long before Searcher came along. Now he's got Searcher and he takes Searcher with him and everything. And, they have these, this great little theme song that is adorable, about the two of them. And we just get to see how much of a badass Jaeger is. And we see that Searcher starts to develop this interest in plants. And on one of these expeditions, when Jaeger's about 15, or when Searcher's about 15 years old, they are on an expedition to try to get past the mountains. And them and their group their group of explorers that are with them end up getting, they almost get killed by a avalanche / cave-in, and Searcher ends up finding these green plants that seem to generate electricity, have power flowing through them, and Jaeger does not think this is interesting at all. He's just like, whatever, it's a silly plan. Come on, let's keep going. And in front of their expedition crew of like 3 other people, 4 other people, whatever, Jaeger and Searcher end up having this big fight. And it's basically, you know, Searcher's complaining about the fact that it's like, you've dragged me on these expeditions since I was a kid and haven't really asked me what I want to do and everything like that. And Jaeger's just like, oh, well, you know, you're my kid. You're supposed to come with me. This is my dream. We're going. And basically this is where they end up shifting gears. Jaeger ends up going off on his own. He leaves. He just heads off even further into the mountains. And then Searcher, along with the other members of the expedition, end up using this new plant that they've discovered that they end up calling Pando. And they take this new plant and they go back to Avalonia because they can use this new plant in order to advance Avalonia's technology and make things at least a lot better there in regards to powering their society and such. So they take it back. And about 25 years later is where the movie picks up again. We get like a time jump 25 years into the future. Searcher is all grown up. He has a farm that he has where he grows Pando and everything. And they, you know, the whole society that they have has been vastly upgraded. So it's basically like Pando is their version of like electricity / also what they use to power their cars / what they use to power their lights and their homes. And, you know, their ships and everything like that. So Pando is what they use to power pretty much everything. Searcher is just like this, you know, he's 40 years old now. He, you know, has a farm. He has a wife whose name is Meridian. And they have a son whose name is Ethan, who's about, I think he's supposed to be about 16 years old or so. And we get to see all the family interacting with each other. They also have a dog whose name is Legend, who has 3 legs, and he's adorable. He's actually somewhat based off of Max from The Little Mermaid, from what I found out while I was looking through some of the stuff about the material about the movie, is that he's slightly based off of Max, which, as much as I love the, you know, as I'm the person that loves like the talking animals in Disney, you know, that love like the, oh, Iago can talk, Sebastian can talk, Flounder can talk, you know, insert whatever other animal can talk. I'm usually fine with that. But one thing that I did like that they did with this movie is that Legend is not like this extremely highly intelligent animal. He is basically the level of what you would expect an animal to be, what you would expect a dog to be. He's not like exceedingly smart. He can't talk. He doesn't have the huge human expressive eyes that you see a lot of the times in Disney animals. They're like much smaller eyes that you tend to see on a dog. He's still a very sweet dog and everything like that, but he's not, you know, he's not like the dog that can figure out, like, he's not the dog that you're going to expect to be able to fly a plane or something along those lines. You know, you're not going to get a rant out of the dog like you would out of Iago, or, you know, even, you know, he's not like as like at the same level of intelligence as like Abu, you know, from, you know, so talking about Aladdin characters, you know, as Abu or whatever. He's very much on the same level of intelligence as like what you see Max in The Little Mermaid. I was trying to think of another animal, Sultan, who is a little footrest dog that you see in Beauty and the Beast. Sultan has that same kind of setup. He's not exceedingly smart, but he is, you know, like the intelligence level of a dog and everything like that. And Legend is adorable. Meridian she's kind of like a crop duster to a degree, as in like she flies around, not just their farm, but I think other farms, and spreads, you know, different types of like weed pest killer and stuff like that over the area. And Meridian and Searcher are very much in love. They're a very cute couple. And Ethan is, of course, the teenager that is just like embarrassed whenever he sees his parents kissing, which is just adorable in and of itself. And we get to see all of them interact with each other and everything. And we get to see that Ethan and his dad get along pretty well. In regards to taking care of the farm and everything like that. You know, Ethan does enjoy helping his dad with growing the Pando and everything like that and being on the farm. We see that whenever, going back to Legend, the dog, at various points in time, we see him like bite one of the Pando balls, Pando little orbs. And like it just shocks him, and then he drops it, and then he picks up another one and gets electrocuted. So I'm like, okay, either he does not learn the concept of don't touch this or you'll get electrocuted, or he likes getting shocked by the Pando. So I don't know exactly. It's never explained. But we see that, and then we also get to meet um, Ethan's group of friends. He's got 3 friends, and one of them he has a huge crush on, whose name is Diazio. And yes, I'll point it out now. Ethan is the first, I believe, he's the first openly gay main protagonist in a Disney movie. I'm happy about this. Yay, Ethan. And it's great. It's like they don't make a big deal out of it in the movie. His parents don't make a big deal out of it. They tease him over the fact that he has a crush and everything like that. And we see Searcher try to be cool around Diazio with the rest of Ethan's friends, and Ethan is just like mortified. Like, oh God, no, Dad, get back here. No, don't talk to them. So we see that. We see Ethan and his dad. Ethan and Searcher go into town, and they're dropping off their different harvests and everything like that to the people that buy their Pando and everything. And Pando is huge. Everybody knows who Ethan is, or knows who Searcher is. He's there's a statue of him in the town square along with his dad and everything for all of the adventures and everything like that that Yeager went on and such. And Yeager is still this mythical comic book character that we that is in the show. And we see Searcher and Ethan just being a dad and son. And at one point Searcher ends up seeing this. There's the statue of Searcher and Yeager, and then we see Ethan in the middle playing with Legend and everything like that. And Searcher kind of has this sad vision of thinking that his son is going to end up like his dad and end up leaving him, because Searcher still has some dad issues and stuff, rightfully so. And we see them all interact. We see Ethan and Searcher interact with each other and everything like that, and they go back to the house, and then we see the family all interacting with each other and having a nice evening and making dinner together and everything like that, which is just a fun scene that they have. There's music playing in the background, and they're all just dancing around and making dinner and everything. And then a giant airship comes out of nowhere and decides to land in their farm. And it is revealed to be this woman who is named Callisto Maul, who is the president/leader of Avalonia. She knows Searcher because she calls him Baby Clay. And she knows Searcher because she had been on the expedition back 25 years ago with Searcher and Yeager when they found the Pando the first time. And she shows up and she shows them that there's Pando that has been dying. And Ethan and Searcher's what's going on with that? And she's I need you to come. And Callisto's I need you to come with me to help figure out what's going on with this. Why Pando seems to be dying. Why it's losing its power and everything. And Searcher's no, I can't do that. I'm not an explorer anymore. I'm a farmer. And she's you're the one that discovered this. You're coming with me. And Ethan wants to go too. Searcher says no. He's I'm not risking your own life, which we definitely see the difference between his parenting style and Yeager's parenting style at this point in time, because Yeager took Searcher everywhere with him when he was a kid. Before Yeager left, he took Searcher everywhere with him on all of his different adventures and everything, without really giving Searcher much of a choice. And he put his son in danger probably multiple times in a single day, definitely dozens of times in a single week. And and Searcher is more no, I'm not taking my son with me because I'm not taking you with me because I don't want you to get hurt. This is most likely going to be very dangerous because there's either something trying to destroy Pando or it's just dying in general, and we need to find out why, and I don't want you to get hurt. And I'm okay, that is definitely the more responsible version of parenting out of the two Clade parents that we've seen. Meridian is perfectly fine with Searcher going off and everything like that, and taking care of all that. She's very confused as to why her husband knows the leader of their society, and it's just well, he is the one that discovered Pando, and I guess it's just not something that I guess Callisto didn't come to the wedding or anything like that, even though she probably could have been at Searcher's wedding and it would have been fine, but that just wasn't the case. Searcher doesn't want this huge accolades. He just wants to be you know, he just wants to be a farmer and be a husband and a father. That's what Searcher wants to be. Um, and, you know, Searcher goes off, and we learn that Pando, within the context of what we know in the world, in the Strange world, is that Pando is actually this one plant that has this huge connective root system. I will get back to that at the end of the video. Huge connected root system, and that, you know, all of the roots end up combining and everything like that. And their intention is they need to go and find the heart of Pando, where like all of these roots converge, and find out what's going on with it. And, you know, they want to do that within a certain amount of time so that way their society doesn't collapse. Makes sense. And what ends up happening from there is that, you know, they end up finding this, you know, she explains it, well, a previous expedition ended up finding this giant crater that like burst, you know, broke through the crust, and it goes down, and now we need to figure out where it goes down to. While they're on their descent down, we end up finding out that, well, Meridian shows up in her airplane thing, her crop duster, and we find out that Ethan, along with Legend, have stowed away on the Venture, which is the name of the ship. I could not find a good enough picture of the ship. I'm sorry. It's a cool looking ship. Couldn't find one. That Ethan has stowed away on that. Ooh, big surprise there. And during this whole thing, they end up getting attacked by these strange red-looking bird-like creatures that end up attacking their ship. The pilot gets pulled out, and he probably is dead. We never see him again, so he's probably dead. And during this whole thing, you know, this big, you know, shifting around of everything, you know, the ship's gonna crash and everything, and Meridian ends up, you know, getting herself onto the ship in a very cool way by jumping from her ship back through the broken windshield, you know, screen, whatever, into the cockpit of the Venture, and she, you know, prevents the plane from crashing. During this time frame, both Searcher and Legend get knocked off of the ship, and, you know, they all end up they end up seeing this world that they had no idea was down there. And it's this fantastical, colorful world filled with all these strange animals that they have no idea what they are. A lot of them look like they have basis of like animals from our world, because there are things that look like deer, but like their heads open up, and it's a lot more of like a fan that comes out, and it looks like it sifts through things. And then we see all these other different things walking around. We see that like part of the like things that look like the land masses actually move, which when I first saw the trailer for this movie, first of all, I'm already like, okay, you got me 100%. I want to see what this movie is. I want to see this movie. And the other thought in my head of like, okay, I love the Disney Animation Studios, but how much of this movie developed while they were on acid and or other things? And I'm like, okay, wow, yeah, that's a very interesting looking world. And I still stand by that. I want to know how many different types of mind-altering things were used while they were making this movie. I'm not against it. If it's in a place where it's legal, I'm fine with it and they're in safe conditions, but I just wish to know. But what we end up seeing is, you know, Searcher is separated along, you know, Searcher and Legend are separated, and his goal is, of course, to get back to where the Venture is, and the Venture needs to be fixed up a little bit, and Ethan wants to just go find his dad right away. Callisto is like, just calm down. We will go find your dad. We're not going to leave him out here. And we end up, you know, she's like, we're not leaving him out here. It's fine. We just have to fix the ship, and then we'll go and find him. Ethan does not wait around for this. He sneaks off while the ship is being repaired and goes to go find his dad. And during this time frame, Searcher and Legend are working on trying to get their way through this, you know, strange world that they landed in. And while they're there, Searcher ends up coming across this blue little, I don't know, it kind of looks a little bit like amoeba, but also just looks like, you know, what was like the Nickelodeon thing for like, you know, like, you know, the whole, you know, the slime thing or whatever. It looks like slime to a degree. It's like weird, sentient, goopy stuff that runs around, and it like steals Searcher's scarf and almost leads him into danger and everything, and ends up getting attacked, and then he ends up getting saved. And, the character, big reveal, the character that saves him is his dad. You know, is Jaeger. He's been kind of in this world for quite a while now, down in the subterranean area. He explains, after I left the exploration party, I continued on and found myself down here, and I've been down here for quite a while. He also has somehow made a flamethrower out of whatever the heck he had available. Never explained how he made the flamethrower, but he made a flamethrower, and he uses that to, fight off a lot of the different things down there that try to attack them. And while he's getting reintroduced to Searcher and everything, first of all, he thinks Searcher is an illusion. And Searcher is like, I am not an illusion. I am not a strange rock. I am actually your son. I can prove it. You gave me a machete for my birthday. I was 2. Again, parenting styles. And very, very big different parenting styles here. And just all the time and Jaeger's just like, you are Searcher. You are my son. It's been a long time. The awkward moment of, do you hug? Do you handshake? Do you hug? They just handshake, and it's very awkward. Emotional trauma. And, during this time frame, Ethan has gone off to go to find his dad. He ends up finding a little blue thing that ends up being called, he ends up nicknaming it Splat. It also ends up slapping him after Ethan had whacked it into a wall when they first interacted. He's like, okay, yeah, no, that's fair. I did slap you into a wall. Yeah. And Splat ends up ends up leading Ethan away, and ends up, claiming that he can take him to his father. He ends up trying to take him to these things that end up getting called Reapers, that are, well, in all honesty, they kind of look like giant octopus type thingies that roll around, and they eat other things. So we see them eat a part of the ship from earlier that got broken off or whatever. And we end up getting these other moments where we just have Ethan on his own, and he's hilarious. It's like, I can be brave. I can get through this cave. Ah! Running through a cave. Just fun stuff. Trying to think of how he can impress Diazio with some of this. It's what did you do this? Well, I went through a cave and trying to find out a way to save Pando and our whole society and everything. I went to this amazing adventure and everything. What'd you do? Yeah. Hey, it's the way teenagers talk to themselves. Sometimes it's the way just people talk to themselves in general. So I can get behind that. And what we end up seeing is, at one point in time, Ethan ends up finding all of this other Pando that's from their ship that they harvested, and he's like, oh, well, we're gonna take this with us because we don't waste it or whatever. And Splat ends up touching one of them, trying to grab it away from him, and it ends up it's electrocuting Splat. He can't let go of it. It's electrocuting him to the point where it ends up burning part of his, I guess skin would be a good way of putting it. And, Ethan, gets away from Splat and everything like that. Gets the Pando off of Splat because he sees that it's causing it a lot of pain. And, he ends up, wrapping Splat's, injury and whatever, trying to, calm down the little Splat. And Splat kind of realizes that maybe he's not a threat, because what we kind of see is that Splat had been trying to lead Ethan to the Reapers, that are these things that actually try to eat all, any intruders or whatever, try to eat any of them. And Splat had been trying to lead Ethan to them, and then when they do find them, because it's within that area, Splat actually tries to get the Reapers to not hurt Ethan. And during this time frame, Searcher and Jaeger have been working their way through the forest, trying to get to, Searcher's, or, Jaeger's hey, you were on that flying machine. That flying machine can get us past to where I need to get past these stupid mountains and everything. And I was if I can't go over the mountains, I'll go under the mountains. And he's okay, so if I get on that flying ship, I can use that to get there. And Searcher is just we're here to figure out what's going on with Pando and everything. We're not here to take you to the other side of the mountains, Dad. Although it is nice to see you again or whatever. But, we have them, being antagonistic against each other and arguing and what ends up happening is, of course, Searcher and Jaeger. I keep wanting to say Clade. That's their last name. Searcher and Jaeger end up, having to go and save Ethan from the Reapers. And, Jaeger uses his flamethrower because why not? And, they get away, they end up having to get saved by Callisto and Meridian, who show up. Callisto and Meridian had like a nice little heart-to-heart at one point, before they figured out that Ethan ran off. Where, Callisto, Meridian's like, things that I love most are my family, my farm, and flying. And if flying can protect the first two, then I'd fly through fire for my family. A lot of F's in that sentence. And such, we see the way that, Meridian very much cares for, her husband and her son and everything, which makes perfect sense. And, we end up, Meridian and Callisto show up and like they try to fight off the different Reapers, and they end up finding out that if you use the Pando, you can throw it at them and like it'll electrocute them to the point where like they're kind of paralyzed. They have been they basically have the effect of paralysis in Pokemon. Okay, I was trying to figure out like a way of saying that correctly, but like they basically have the effect of being paralyzed. That was a word. Sorry. In Pokemon, to the point where it's like they get electrocuted and they can't really move, and then that allowed them to escape and they get back to the venture and everything, and everybody's like, hey, it's Jaeger, it's Jaeger Clade and everything like that, and like we get people all really happy to see him again. And then we get like these different moments on their way through, because Callisto makes kind of a deal where it's just like, our goal here is to find out what is going on with Pando. Once we find out what's going on with that and fix it, we'll go past the mountains, okay? Just to like appease Jaeger, because she's probably had to deal with Jaeger several times in the past on various expeditions or whatever before he left. And during this time frame, they're all on the venture and they're all just somewhat, the family is somewhat getting to know each other. Jaeger is getting to meet Searcher again, like get to meet Meridian and get to meet Ethan a little bit more formally and everything and such. And we get that, and we have these moments where Searcher and Jaeger end up talking, and either doesn't go very well or it does kind of go well, and shifts a little bit at times. And then we have Meridian and Ethan end up talking, and they end up being like, okay, well, they're like watching as Searcher and Jaeger are talking, and she's like, you realize that your dad and your grandpa are basically the same person, right? He's like, yeah, I can tell, because they have like the same mannerisms and everything like that, which is really funny. And then we have this moment, we have these different moments in the traveling sequence where, the Reapers try to attack again, or something else tries to attack, and they end up having to, fight against them and everything, or they end up coming to like this giant like acid geyser pit, and they have to get across it. And Meridian's like, I don't know if I can fly us through that. I don't know if we have like enough, altitude or whatever to be able to get past this. And Splat, who is now traveling with them, like goes to the front of the ship and ends up talking to like these little looking, I compared them to like the little tardigrades that are like little tiny little things that can live for a very, 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 very long time. They're like microscopic and everything, but they're extremely durable. And like I compare them to that. Like they end up like Splat kind of talks to them, via, I guess, whatever the type of Splatnese or whatever, I guess would be whatever Splat speaks. Yeah, Splat speaks. Yeah, that's the correct. Yeah, that's right. And ends up, getting, the little amoeba things or whatever to like help them. And they, a bunch of them show up and like they like lift the ship and like carry it over the geysers, which is pretty cool. And like, we're having Ethan get to see a bunch of these other creatures that are there, and like the rest of the crew aren't exactly sure if they're safe or not, but like Splat keeps, kind of like showing Ethan kind of some different things. And at one point in time, Ethan tries to, Ethan and Jaeger end up having, like a conversation, which is kind of a nice conversation in all honesty, because Jaeger's trying to get to know his grandson and everything, because when he found out that he had a grandson, he's like to Searcher, he's like, Jaeger Clade as a grandpa? And Ethan and Searcher's like, technically, yes. He also goes at one point, and Mom is gone. She's dead. No, she's 60 years old and she works at the gym 5 days a week. She's fine. What I meant was she moved on. She now has a boyfriend. His name is Sheldon. And Yeager is just very angry about this. It's like, well, technically you were probably either legally, declared dead, or she just, went through the process of divorcing you and you weren't there to, like, go against any of it. So, yeah. That's what happens. During the traveling sequence and everything, when Searcher and Ethan, or when Yeager and Ethan are talking or whatever, they end up having a conversation that Yeager's like, so, got any sweethearts or anything like that? And he's like, yeah, I do. His name's Diageo, and he's really cool and nice and everything. And we do actually see that at the beginning of the movie, when we see Diageo and Ethan interact, we do see that Diageo does seem to like Ethan back, because they're like teasing each other and everything and flirting, and like their friends are teasing them too, and such. And there's this card game that all of them play, and Diageo had made sure that they did get a pack for Ethan. So because Ethan wasn't there to be able to get the card pack at that time, so they made sure that they got one for him. So we definitely see that the affection is reciprocated in that regard, which I like. And Yeager just goes directly into, well, have you told him that you like him? Well, here's what you need to do. You need to figure out a way to get him to, make sure that he likes you back. And the way that you could do that is you could get him into a dangerous situation, a life or death situation. And then you make it appear that he's going to die, and then you save him. And then he will fall in love with you. And Ethan is just like, no, I'm not doing that. That was a horrible idea. And Yeager is like, and my thought is like, please don't tell me that's how Yeager met his wife. Please don't. Never explained how they met, but I'm like, oh Lord help. And I don't think Searcher would have used those techniques to try to get Meridian to like him either. Don't think Searcher would have done that. But we get like that great interaction, and then of course, because why not, Ethan gets to try out the flamethrower, which is funny. And then they end up, all three generations, Ethan, Yeager, and Searcher all end up playing the card game that's called Primal Outpost, which is designed to be a game where you're supposed to use all of the different material that you're given along with the environment around you and try to survive. And, neither Searcher nor Yeager seems to quite understand that, there's no villains in this game. You're not supposed to fight against anything. You're just supposed to work together. And it doesn't work well. And Ethan even ends up having this whole moment where he's like, there is no villain in this game. And it's literally like him not only just talking to his dad and his grandfather, it is also basically him addressing the audience over the fact that a lot of the last several Disney movies, and even a couple of the Pixar ones in regards to Turning Red and stuff, that there hasn't really been a straight up villain in the movie. I mean, okay, Lightyear being an exception, the fact that Zurg was definitely the villain in that one, but Turning Red didn't really have a villain, and Kanto didn't really have a villain. Coco, because I have Coco on the brain for whatever reason, that had the villain in, Ernesto, but, several of the last ones have not necessarily had a straight up villain. And it's just basically Ethan going, there is no villain. You work with everything else to survive. That is how it works. And like the dad of the grandpa don't get it, which is nice, which is just funny. And like Splat's there too, and he's just like stealing cards and like sticking them on himself, which is just kind of funny. And they end up. Then it gets to the point where they end up finding what they believe to be the heart of Pando. And it is this, they've been following the root system that has, been traveling through this whole area, because that's what they've been following the whole time, is this glowing root system. And they get their way to what is supposedly the heart of Pando. And it's this big glowing green, like, tangle of vines. And they're like, okay, and like they see that a lot of these other creatures that they've been having to deal with over the past, couple of days are trying to attack Pando. And they're like, okay, so we need to get these creatures off of Pando so that way Pando can survive. We got to get them away from it so that way Pando can, not be in danger anymore. And Splat keeps trying to explain something to Ethan, but he's not getting it. And they end up taking a bunch of the Pando that they already have and crushing it up and turning it into something along the lines of insecticide and such like that. They turn it into a powder form, and they're using that to fight against the different creatures that keep showing up to attack them. And one of the things that ends up happening is Ethan and Searcher end up having an argument, in the fact that Ethan actually ends up jumping off of the ship and trying to walk off, and Searcher goes after him on one of their little hover things. I don't know what to describe them as, but little hover bike things. And they end up, kind of traveling far enough that they end up actually, they have this conversation about Searcher's I want to protect you. That's why I didn't want you to come here in the first place, because I wanted to keep you safe. All my life, my dad put me in danger on all of these different expeditions and everything like that. And I didn't want you to go through that. And, he's worried that his son is going to turn out like his dad and leave him and everything like that. And the two of them have this big conversation. And while they're having this conversation, they end up kind of drifting off, and they end up outside of the mountains. And Ethan's like, Dad, look. And Ethan looks, and it's just or Searcher looks, and it's just they're staring at a giant eyeball. It's they look out to one side, and it's just water for as far as the eye can see. And they look the other way, and it's a giant eyeball. And they're like, oh my God, we have been inside of this creature the entire time. And it's Avalonia is on its back. That big windy area was its lungs. The acid gastric area was it's in the intestines. And oh my God, we have been inside of this thing the entire time. And it's that moment where it's just oh my God. Yeah. I'm sitting there because when I'm watching this movie for the first time, I'm okay, let's see what they do with this. And it's going through. I'm well, these are very strange animals. And even at times, I was those animals that are attacking them are kind of attacking them in the way that white blood cells and other things like that. When you take antibiotics, or when you have, with everything that just happened with COVID and everything like that, when you get antibodies and stuff like that inside of your body, the way that they attack things that aren't supposed to be there. And I'm watching this movie, and a lot of the stuff that we end up seeing, the Reapers and some of the other things, very much end up, reminded me of that stuff. Bear in mind, I had not looked up spoilers for this movie. I think I vaguely knew that there was an LGBTQ character in it. And I think I knew that it was one of the main characters, and I'd seen the previews, but I had not looked up any spoilers in regards to what actually happens in the movie. But I'm okay, I was at least on the right track when I kind of thought of some of those comparisons. And Ethan and Searcher are we gotta go and stop them. That thing that the Pando is actually the thing that's infesting this place, and it's causing this creature, whatever it is that we've been living on or in or whatever, so much pain. And the thing, and all the creatures that are trying to attack Pando are actually trying to protect this creature. They're it's antibodies and everything. And they're okay, we got to get back. And they get back, and they explain to Meridian and Callisto and the rest of the crew and Jaeger what's going on, that we're actually inside of this giant creature, that the Pando is actually the problem. We actually have to get rid of it, and we have to try to save the heart of whatever this creature is, not the heart of Pando. And because the Pando itself has wrapped itself around the heart of this creature, and it's probably to a degree feeding off of the creature's life force, energy, however you want to put it. And Callisto, okay, I can't really get angry at Callisto for this. She is the leader of Avalonia. It is her job to try to make sure that Avalonia is taken care of, that it has the resources that it needs. And she's well, we need to try to protect Pando because that's what gives our society power. That's what helps power our homes and everything else. So we can't just, up and ignore it. We have to do something. And she ends up actually locking the Clade family, because Jaeger actually goes up on his own. He gets one of the hover bikes, and he heads off to go and try to get past the mountains and everything like that, because he's just I've dreamt of this my whole life. I'm going to go see what's on the other side of these mountains. I don't care what the rest of you do. He goes off. And Searcher and Meridian and Ethan end up getting locked in like a supply closet or whatever. Well, the rest, while Callisto and the others are going to get ready to deal with all of the rest of the infestation, or not the infestation, but deal with the creatures that are trying to attack Pando. Because we see that like the creatures are trying to get into Pando, but it keeps electrocuting them into the the vines wrapped around the heart, so that way they can't actually get into Pando and actually cause actually hurt it. And what ends up happening is Legend shows up. We see all three Meridian, Searcher, and Ethan try to get Legend to like figure out how to unlock the door. But again, Legend is not an exceedingly intelligent animal. He can't just know like click lock, push down, open door. He can't figure that out. But Splat, who's actually I think locked in the closet with them, ends up like I guess somewhat communicating to Legend that push down the handle, and like they try that, but the door still won't open. And like we see that all of them are just like trying to like convince Legend to like try to figure out what he's supposed to do, and like he ends up like licking the lock a whole bunch of times. It doesn't actually end up doing anything, but he ends up licking the lock a whole bunch of times. We're just like, is he licking the lock? Legend, don't lick the lock. It's just like it's a funny moment. It's really funny. And Splat just like goes under the door, comes up, unlocks, pushes down, open door, and like the rest of them are just like, it's like should have just done that in the first place. And like Splat had been all over the ship and everything like that, like interacting with everyone and such. And I think Splat had somewhat been trying to tell Ethan the fact that no, Pando is actually a bad thing, that it's actually hurting the thing, because a Splat, I'm assuming on some level, knows that its job is to protect this area, but we don't know exactly how much intelligence Splat has. It's never stated, but it seems fairly intelligent. And Ethan and Searcher and Meridian are like, okay, we got to get this thing taken care of. We got to get them away from Pando, and we've got to get to Pando, and we've got to like make a hole in Pando that the rest of the animals can get in through, the creatures can get through and like get inside and destroy Pando so they can save the creature. So that is their intention. Ethan and Searcher end up going off to try to deal with that. Meridian gets inside and she takes over the flying because the other guy is just like, I am not dealing with this, and leaves. He doesn't know how to fly a plane, so she takes over flying. And Callisto tries to get in and tries to take care of that, and it doesn't, Meridian at one point in time while she's flying, Callisto's like, take your hands off those controls. Okay. And like the ship like dive bombs. Callisto's like, put your hands back on the controls. And she like flies around the cabin. And Meridian's like, put them on, take them off. Put them on, take them off. Make up your mind. And like flies the ship. And she like flies the ship around so Callisto can actually see what's going on. And during this time frame, Searcher has been trying to break through the hard shell that's on the outside of like where the Pando's roots are and such, and getting electrocuted several times while he's doing this. Ethan has gone to try to get a bunch of the different animals, the creatures, to come and try to get to where Searcher is so they can get inside. And during this time frame, we've also had it that Jaeger has been going off on his own little solo mission, and the bike crashes, little hover bike crashes, and he ends up seeing this compass, because we've seen this compass multiple times throughout the movie. It was Jaeger's compass to begin with, and then he gave it to Searcher before, he split off from him and left, and then now he's gotten it back and everything. And it's, it's like the whole whole concept of like, it's like the compass, and like your true north is like your family at the top of it. And like Searcher or Jaeger finally has this moment where he realizes that I have been, I've been trying to find a way past these mountains all my life, for as long as I can remember. And I didn't realize how much I was actually missing with my own family, because he's missed stuff. He took Searcher on all these different adventures and everything like that when Searcher was a kid, but he didn't ask Searcher if that was he actually wanted to do. And then now it's like, your family is back there and they need you, and you're going off on your own and trying to do this. And he turns around, he gets back on the hover bike thing, and he goes off and he goes back. And like, we have a moment where like him and Searcher kind of have like this moment where they, somewhat have fixed their relationship. And, Jaeger just like rips apart his flamethrower, and he's got his two little pickaxes that he had to begin with, and like Searcher and him are like digging through the shell enough to make a hole, and like Ethan shows up with all the creatures, and like they go through the hole and like dig into the hole and like get inside of Pando, and end up like destroying Pando from the inside and like tearing it apart. And Searcher and Ethan and Jaeger, so those three generations are there, and like Callisto and Meridian and the rest of the crew are like watching as this is happening. And they tears apart Pando. We see as the rest of the Pando vines just start dying and everything. As it goes, back through the creature, we see as like all the different things are, all the different Pando vines and roots and everything are like dying and such. And then we see what is clearly supposed to be a heart. But the heart isn't beating anymore, and it's very dark and gray. And like everybody's thinking like, we were too late. We didn't stop Pando in time. We didn't save this the way that we should have. And then we see these other creatures that we've seen before, like used to help like heal different wounds within this creature. Because like earlier in the movie, whenever Jaeger would end up using his flamethrower on certain areas, like these creatures would show up and like fix the area pretty dang quickly, and such like that. And I was kind of giving them because I know that like not a biology expert. If someone is watching this video and you are more of a biology expert and you can explain certain things to me in this, that would be great. Please comment. But I was kind of making a comparison to the way that these creatures show up and like they end up helping, because there's like this giant big creature that I kind of was comparing to like a Brachiosaurus, and the fact that it's like a long neck type thing and a very large body and long legs. Not a giraffe, but more of a long neck, more of a brachiosaur. And like it would shake like these plant-like things on its back, and down would come like these little gummy looking creatures that would then like help heal up the wounded areas and like turn into whatever was needed to help fix the creature, what the inside of the creature. And I was kind of doing a similar comparison in my head to stem cells. Now I know stem cells themselves are a big controversial thing like that and certain things like that, but that wasn't where I was headed with that. I was like, well, I know that a lot of the times I know that stem cells are things that I know that can generally be used to, like stem cells, my understanding is that they have the ability to be able to turn into kind of almost anything in regards to what the human body needs, in regards to like helping with healing purposes and stuff like that. And I was kind of doing a comparison there. Again, don't know a whole lot about biology or things like that, but that was just like a comparison that I thought of in my head based on my general knowledge of stuff. And these things show up and like, they cover the heart and they end up helping heal like the damage that was done to the heart by the Pando. And we know that the Pando has at least been there for 25 years. We don't know exactly how much longer it's been there. We don't know how long it was on the creature or not. But, has been inside of the creature and causing the creature pain and such. But definitely the whole fact of, Jaeger and all the rest of the, Pando farmers had been growing Pando for the last 25 years. Definitely hasn't helped matters, and probably had, exasperated the matter a lot in that regard. And what ends up happening is the heart starts glowing and it starts beating again. And like all of the humans are watching as this is happening and everything. And, we see, as like what appear to be like the blood vessels and everything start flowing again and everything's working the way that it should. And it's good. And then the crew and, all the humans and everything get back on the Venture and they fly out of, the path that Searcher and Ethan had gone on to get, out of the creature. And they get out of the creature. I don't know if we get an explanation as to exactly where they came out of, but it's just like they go through a cave and then they get out. So I don't know if it's just like there's various openings on this creature's body that are not its, mouth or its eyes or something like that, or its nose that you can get through. But they get out and they fly up. And they see the creature, and like Jaeger is like looking out at the ocean, and like him and Searcher have like this nice moment where he's just like, I shouldn't have been the way that I was. I should have tried to be with you more. And it's like, I'm very proud of what you have become. And like we have that nice moment between the father and the son, and then we still have the nice moment between like Searcher and Ethan and such, and like, the family together and such is kind of how it ends. with that part, but like we see them all looking at this creature, and it's just like, I guess when we get back to Avalonia, we'll have to explain to everybody what happened, what this creature is, and the fact that we live on its back, and the reason, and that's what's been going on. That's what we've been living on for however many generations. I have theories about that, but I don't know exactly how to put that in regards to like how they ended up there. But whatever, it's a story. I don't care. Okay, I do care, but I care, but it's not a problem at the moment. But we see them all go back, and we see Ethan say goodbye to Splat, and like they all head back. And we cut to 1 year ahead. We jump ahead a year, and we find out that Ethan and Diageo have their friendship. Their friendship has evolved, and they are in a relationship. And that Ethan and Diageo and the rest of their friends have been living inside of the creature for the last year or so, and like they're going through and like cleaning up all of the different Pando roots and everything that are still there, and getting all of that stuff taken care of. We also know that society as a whole has been trying to figure out ways of moving on from using Pando as a power source. Probably they at least had some Pando left over and stuff like that hadn't died yet, that still had charge, and they could probably use that for certain things. But they probably spent the last year working on trying to figure out better ways of, fueling their society and everything like that. Like they went back to like horse and buggy days at times. But like they're learning how to harvest, harness like wind power and stuff like that is what they're also working on. And what ends up happening is, we see, Searcher or Jaeger goes and he gets to see Penelope again, and then he gets to meet Sheldon, who's her boyfriend, who just resulted in him getting a big hug and everything like that. And we see, the Clade Farms has transitioned from growing Pando to growing like tomatoes and other vegetables and everything like that. Because they already had the farming system set up, so they just planted new stuff. And they do that. And, as I said, Ethan and Diageo are in a relationship now, and we see everything's happy that way. And what else ends up happening is we get the last shot of the movie, or like they travel outside of the creature and zoom out, and we see that the creature is actually a giant turtle that is, swimming around on whatever their version of the world is, which is just huge ocean area. We don't see anything else on the planet, so I guess there's a possibility there's another turtle, but I don't know. Before I go into outside references with this, I will go over the cast. So for the cast, we have Jake Gyllenhaal as Searcher Clade. We have Dennis Quaid as Jaeger Clade. We have Jaboukie Young-White as Ethan Clade. I know Jaboukie Young-White from The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. He was on there for quite a while, and he was a really fun correspondent. We have Gabrielle Union as Meridian Clade. We have Lucy Liu as Callisto Mall. We have Karan Sonia as Caspian, who's I think just one of the other members of the crew. He's one that's a huge fan of like Jaeger Clade or whatever. And then we have Alan Tudyk, who is of course been part of the last several different Disney movies. He plays the narrator / radio host / like the pilot at the beginning of their little adventure that ends up getting killed. I may have to do a video just about like all the different people Alan Tudyk has played in the Disney shows right now. But yeah, so outside facts. So obviously the giant turtle is a reference to like the world tortoise from various mythologies, mostly I believe Indian mythology, I think, where the concept was that the world is actually on the back of a giant tortoise and such. So there was like, that was like one of their original creation myths, was that the world was on the back of a giant tortoise. So that is clearly what that is referencing. And I find that awesome. And then the other thing was, when we're watching the movie and I'm sitting there thinking about like Pando and such, I'm like, I know this reminds me of something in regards to just like this giant organism that has like a root system and everything, and I could not figure out what it was reminding me of. But I believe it was like the day after, like 2 or 3 days after, my dad and I were listening to NPR while we're like getting stuff ready for Thanksgiving, for Christmas or whatever. Yes, my dad and I listened to NPR, get over it. And they were talking about this forest that is in the Fish Lake. It's the Fish Lake National Forest in the Fremont River Ranger District in the Colorado Plateau in south central Utah. And what it is it is this thing that is the Pando forest. And Pando is Latin for ice spread. And it is a clonal colony of an individual male quaking aspen. And it is this huge forest that has this huge interconnected root system. Yes, there are these trees on top of the, above soil, but they're all interconnected root systems, and they're all technically one giant living organism. And it's like over 6,000 tons. It's like 108 acres in regards to how huge it is. It spans over over a mile, over a mile or 1.6 kilometers. It's huge. It is the oldest known living organism because it is several thousand years old in regards to how old this root system has been around in that area. And I'm like, that's what it was reminding me of, because I'd like heard about this forest before, and that was what made me think of it. Like, that's what I was trying to think of. That's why it reminded me so much of it, was because of that. So I wanted to throw that in there for why that sounded familiar to me. If anybody else thought that sounded familiar to them, that's probably why. Because like they called it Pando, and I'm like, I know that sounds familiar, but why? That's why. So yeah. Not really a whole lot else in regards to that. The world tortoise, Pando, very much saw the, it's like, I'm sitting there going like, it reminds me of like, antibodies and stuff like that inside of the, inside of your circulatory system and everything like that. And that's like just what that reminded me of. When I was like sitting there and watching the movie the first time, and I was right. So I'm sure whenever they end up coming up with like the behind the scenes for this movie, either when it goes to DVD or like the behind the scenes of that, when that ends up on Disney Plus, which I will end up watching when that happens. They have not been put up yet by the time I record this, but when it does go up, I'll probably end up watching it. And it'll probably talk about like, well, we studied the human body and like the way that the systems work and stuff like that, the way that antibodies work, and that's kind of what we derived a lot of these things from, and such. Which I'm like, okay, I can get by that. I still think they were at least on something while they were trying to do that, because certain things in that movie are just like, okay, I don't know how you came up with that, but I'm interested in finding out. But yeah, that's what we have. I thank you for watching. I have a Kingdom Hearts shirt on because I highly doubt this world would ever end up in a Kingdom Hearts game, but it would definitely be one of the worlds that I would love to see in a Kingdom Hearts game if they ever did. Love that, because that would be so fun to run around this world. And do that. That would be great. But yeah, I'm going to have several videos. I'm going to have 2 other videos at least that tie into this. One that is comparing Strange World to some of the other Disney, Disney products and such like that they've done. Some of the other movies and such, because there's a couple. There's the 3 that I mentioned earlier, and then there's a Pixar one that I'm going to compare it to as well. And then I also have the other one that I'm going to do that's going to compare Jaeger to a certain character in One Piece. And if you can figure out who that is, please comment. If not, you'll find out once I put up the video. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye! For the 27th time, there are no bad guys. The objective isn't to kill or destroy monsters. You're just supposed to build a working civilization utilizing the environment around you.